Jace was pretty sure the ship was trying to drive him insane. The lights flickered again. That damn console beeped like a caffeinated woodpecker. And the AI, whom he'd taken to calling Glitch for reasons he was sure the company would hate, piped up, "Did you know, Captain, that humans spend approximately 6 years of their lives waiting in line? Fascinating, isn't it?" Jace pinched the bridge of his nose. "Glitch, if you wanted to mess with my head, you could have just played some 80s elevator music on loop. Less annoying." "Noted," Glitch replied with a digital chuckle. "I'll add it to the playlist." It was the middle of the 57th day since Jace had left the last space station behind. The ship's name was the Artemis, a cargo freighter that looked like a floating tin can trying desperately to be edgy. Jace had no company except for Glitch and an endless sea of stars outside the viewport. His job? Deliver a mysterious crate to a far-flung colony on the edge of map space. Easy. Boring. Lonely. His reflection in the window blinked back at him. Dark circles beneath tired eyes, a scruffy beard that had seen better days, and a forehead creased from thinking too hard about how many times he could survive on freeze-dried noodles before losing his mind. The silence pressed in like an unwanted blanket, but Jace had learned to talk to himself. "Hey, at least you don't snore," he muttered. "On the contrary," Glitch said smoothly, "I have excellent respiratory algorithms." Jace snorted. "Glad you find your own jokes funny." The hours crawled. Routine systems checks, scans of the cargo hold, refilling the anti-gravity gel packs. Tasks that were supposed to keep him sane but felt more like exercises in futility. He checked the cargo container again. The crate was sealed tight, no markings, just a faint hum vibrating through its walls. He'd asked Glitch what was inside, but the AI's answer was always the same. Classified, possibly boring. Jace wanted to believe it was boring. That night, he crashed into his bunk, hoping for uninterrupted sleep. The ship's gravity hummed softly, a comforting presence in the void. His eyes fluttered shut, but just as he drifted off, a soft creak came from the door. Jace's heart jolted. "Glitch, did you authorize any visitors?" "No visitors on record, Captain, unless the cargo box has developed legs." He sat up, eyes adjusting. There in the dim light, a figure stood beside his bed. A woman. Not just any woman. Her silhouette was slender, almost regal, with long ears that curved elegantly back from her head like antennae tuned to a secret frequency. Her skin had a subtle shimmer, like starlight trapped in flesh, and her eyes held galaxies. Jace rubbed his eyes. "Okay, that's new." She said nothing, just tilted her head slightly, those long ears twitching softly as if listening for something beyond the room. Jace swallowed. "Who are you?" The woman's lips parted, and she spoke with a voice that was both melodic and authoritative. "I am Lyria. I mean you no harm." Jace blinked. "Right. Lyria. Princess Lyria, by any chance?" She nodded once, the faintest smile flickering. "How did you—" "Google is great, but in this case, I'm just good at guessing." His humor was a poor shield against the fact that he was face to face with someone he never expected to see. Alone out here, or so he thought. Lyria's gaze flicked to the sealed crate. "Is that the reason?" Jay shrugged. "If you're asking if I'm hiding something, then yeah. That thing is less mysterious than it sounds. It's just the reason I'm out here alone, talking to an AI that won't stop with the bad jokes." Glitch interjected. "I'll have you know my jokes are top tier among artificial intelligences." Lyria's long ears twitched in amusement. "Your companion has a sense of humor." "More like a malfunction," Jace muttered, then shrugged. "Anyway, what are you doing here?" "I escaped my homeworld," Lyria said quietly. "My family is in danger. The crate you carry, it is vital to our survival." Jace stared. "Great. So now I'm the unlucky delivery guy for an interstellar rebellion." She didn't laugh, but the twitch of her ears suggested she appreciated the attempt at humor. "There is no time to explain fully. You must help me." Jace ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm just a pilot. I'm not a hero or a diplomat. And I definitely didn't sign up for royal drama." Lyria smiled, a genuine warmth that seemed to brighten the dim room. "Neither did I. But here we are." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the ship filling the space. Jace glanced at the crate again, then back at Lyria. You know, for a princess, you sure don't look like you want a throne. I prefer quiet spaces, she admitted. Like this ship, despite its quirks. Jace grinned. Quirks? That's the nicest thing anyone said about the Artemis in weeks. Glitch beeped. I heard that. See what I mean? Jace said. Lyria stood, her presence graceful even in the cramped cabin. If you agree to help me, I promise you won't regret it. Famous last word, Jace muttered, but there was a spark in his chest. Something like hope, or maybe just curiosity. As the ship drifted deeper into the star-studded abyss, two unlikely companions faced the vast unknown. One was a lonely pilot who thought he was alone in the universe. The other, an alien princess with long ears and secrets heavier than the silence between the stars. And neither of them had the slightest idea what came next. By the way, Jay said, breaking the stillness, you ever try space coffee? It's like regular coffee, but with a 90% chance it tastes like burnt stars. Lyria's ears twitched in what Jace chose to interpret as laughter. Perhaps I shall avoid it. Smart move, Jace agreed. Welcome aboard, princess. The ship hummed, carrying them forward, toward danger, discovery, and maybe, just maybe, something resembling friendship. And for the first time in a long time, Jace didn't feel quite so alone. Jace watched Lyria as she paced the narrow corridor of the Artemis, her long ears flicking this way and that like delicate radar dishes tuned to the faintest signals. You know, he said, leaning against the bulkhead with a smirk, if those ears pick up any gossip from the engine room, you owe me a drink. She shot him a sideways glance, lips twitching. I don't drink your, what did you call it? Space coffee? Burnt stars, Jace said with mock pride. Seriously, it tastes like the bottom of a supernova caught in a cup. Lyria's eyes sparkled with something like amusement. I might prefer your company over the coffee. Flattery will get you everywhere, Jace said, though the corners of his mouth twitched. They stood in silence a moment, the ship's hum filling the space. Tell me, Lyria said, her voice softer now, why did you take this assignment? It's dangerous, far from known routes, and you've been alone for weeks. Jace scratched his chin, pretending to think deeply. Honestly, because it pays better than waiting tables in a zero-G dive bar. Plus, space is quieter than most places, and I like quiet. Loneliness doesn't seem like an easy companion. Yeah, Jace admitted. Sometimes it's like having a roommate who never leaves but never talks either. Lyria's ears twitched and she smiled faintly. I suppose exile is my lot, fleeing shadows of a palace I once called home. Palace exile? Now that sounds like a story worth hearing. She nodded, settling onto a bench, her hands folded neatly in her lap. My people, the Alaran, live among the stars in vast floating cities. Our technology is ancient and mysterious. Biotech and starcraft woven together like threads in a tapestry. But power struggles have fractured our world. My family was overthrown by those who crave dominion. Jace raised an eyebrow. So you're basically the space equivalent of a royal soap opera casualty? Lyria's ears twitched in what looked like a smirk. If only it were that simple. Sounds complicated, Jace said. Look, I'm just a pilot. I can fly, avoid asteroids, and swear at malfunctioning equipment in 5 languages. But politics? Not my thing. Yet fate has placed you in the center of it. The ship rattled gently and Glitch piped up. Captain, sensors detect an energy surge nearby. Possibly a star's magnetic storm. Recommended course, adjust trajectory by 2.7 degrees starboard. Jace sighed. Thanks, Glitch. You're like a nagging mother with a circuit board. Lyria stood, ears twitching. Perhaps we should take a look. They headed to the cockpit, where the star field twisted and shimmered on the holographic displays. The energy surge was real, a swirling maelstrom of charged particles dancing on the edge of their path. Jace frowned. If we get caught in that, it'll fry the ship's systems faster than you can say space toast. Can we avoid it? Lyria asked. Course we can, but it'll add 2 hours to the trip. Lyria tilted her head, ears twitching thoughtfully. Sometimes the longest path reveals the most. Jace snorted. Poetry and piloting? You're full of surprises. They adjusted course, the ship veering away from the storm with a smooth hiss. As the Artemis glided through the void, Lyria peered out the viewport, eyes reflecting the swirling cosmic dance. So, Jace said, what's that crate you were so secretive about? Lyria's expression grew serious. It contains a device, ancient technology crafted by my ancestors. It holds the key to restoring balance in my world. Jace blinked. Ancient tech, huh? Sounds like the galaxy's version of a do not touch button. Exactly, she said. In the wrong hands, it could bring destruction. Well, at least it's not just a fancy paperweight. Lyria's ears twitched and she smiled. You underestimate the power of history. Jace shook his head, grinning. I'm just saying, I've hauled more boring cargo in my day. Their banter was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Warning, unidentified vessel detected approaching. Jace grabbed the controls, heart racing. Well, looks like our quiet trip just got noisy. Lyria stepped beside him, calm and poised. Then we must be ready. Ready, Jace said, fingers flying over the console. I'm about as ready as a kitten in a laser tag arena. Glitch chimed in. Captain, initiating defense protocols. The ship's lights shifted to red, panels flashing warnings. Outside, the blip of a sleek, unfamiliar ship appeared on the radar. Jace swallowed. All right, princess. Time to see what you're made of. Lyria's ears flattened in determination. And you, Captain, might just surprise yourself. As the two faced the incoming threat, the vastness of space felt a little less empty, charged with possibility, danger, and the strange companionship of two unlikely allies. The silence of the void was broken not by loneliness, but by the hum of shared fate and a hint of humor in the face of the unknown. The warning klaxon blared like an overenthusiastic nightclub bouncer, jolting Jace fully awake. His hands slammed down on the console controls with a practiced reflex, fingers dancing over buttons, switches, and touchscreens like a piano player mid-concert. Glitch, status report. What's coming at us? A vessel of unknown origin, Captain. Its energy signature is inconsistent with known galactic fleets. Possibly a pirate ship or a corporate scavenger, the AI replied, its voice calm, almost too calm for the brewing storm. Lyria's long ears twitched sharply. Pirates? Here. I thought the Outer Rim was mostly ghost stories and floating debris. Apparently ghosts with laser cannons, Jace muttered, eyes narrowing as the radar painted the shape of the intruder. A sleek ship shaped like a dagger, cutting through the starfield. The Artemis wasn't built for battle, but Jace had a few tricks up his sleeve. Activating stealth mode, he said, fingers flying as the ship's hull shimmered faintly, a cloak of adaptive nanomaterials wrapping it like liquid shadow. Stealth mode? You didn't tell me we had that, Lyria said, eyes wide. Me neither. Glitch just likes to surprise me. Jace smirked. Consider it my panic button. The incoming ship slowed, scanning the area with pulses that shimmered against their cloaking. They're looking for us, Jace said, voice low. Probably tracking the crate. Do you think it's the rebels from my homeworld? Lyria asked. Could be, or just some opportunists smelling a payday. Jace shrugged. Either way, we need to stay hidden. Let's hope our little ghost act holds. The seconds stretched like light years, every beep and flicker sending adrenaline racing. Then abruptly, the intruder ship veered away, lost interest. Or so it seemed. Jace exhaled, leaning back. Well, that was fun. Remind me to never bring a party to a laser fight. Lyria's lips twitched into a smile. You have an interesting way of defining fun. Glitch interjected, Captain, sensors indicate residual energy traces from the intruder. They may attempt to track us through less obvious means. Fantastic. So now we're ghosts with a trail, Jace groaned. Lyria stood, long ears flicking. If they find us, we'll need a plan. Do you have any tricks up those ears? Jace asked, raising an eyebrow. More than you might imagine. She moved to the cargo hold, where the sealed crate pulsed faintly with that mysterious energy. Jace followed, curiosity overcoming fatigue. What's inside anyway? You've been cagey about it. Lyria's fingers traced the crate's surface. This device holds the power to disrupt the energy matrix that sustains the corrupt regime back home. It's ancient Ellerin technology, capable of severing their control. Jace frowned. So, basically a cosmic off-switch? In a manner of speaking, she said, but it's delicate. Mishandling could cause unpredictable results. Like blowing up half the galaxy? Jace joked, but Lyria's serious gaze cut through the humor. Something like that, she admitted, which is why it must reach the right hands. Jace paced, glancing at the ship's controls and the starfield beyond. All right, Princess, we need a plan. We can't just hide forever. Lyria nodded. Agreed. I have a contact on a nearby station, safe harbor and allies, but getting there will be complicated. Jace grinned. Complicated is my middle name. Well, technically it's Harold, but you get the point. Then let's prepare, Lyria said, determination in her eyes. The ship hummed as they adjusted course toward the distant station, its neon lights flickering like beacons in the void. Along the way, Jace busied himself with ship maintenance, cracking jokes at Glitch's expense. You know, if I wanted constant reminders about oxygen levels, I'd just date an Alaran princess. Glitch responded, Captain, oxygen is essential for human survival, not a suggestion. Sure, Glitch. Next, you'll tell me to drink water and wear pants. Lyria laughed softly, her ears twitching. You humans have an interesting sense of humor. Jace smiled. It's a survival mechanism. As the station loomed closer, Jace felt a flicker of hope. The lonely stretch of space might soon be crowded with allies, plans, and maybe even answers. But he knew better than to expect a smooth ride. Brace yourself, Lyria warned, eyes narrowing. Our enemies are clever, and this journey will test us. Jace nodded. Good. I was getting bored anyway. Together they plunged into the next chapter of their journey, a pilot and an alien princess bound by fate, humor, and a crate that might just change the course of the stars. The docking clamps hissed shut behind them, with a sound that reminded Jace of a reluctant handshake. Firm but not exactly welcoming. He glanced sideways at Lyria, whose long ears twitched in subtle rhythm, perhaps picking up the station's hidden frequencies, or maybe just the echoes of the less-than-sterile spaceport air. So, this is your safe harbor, huh? Jace asked, pulling a wrinkled glove from his hand and waving it theatrically. Looks like the kind of place where even the robots might ask for a bribe. Lyria smiled, a rare flash of humor breaking through her usual composure. Safe is a relative term, but it is our best chance. As they stepped onto the docking platform, the station's fluorescent lighting flickered overhead, bathing the corridors in a washed-out glow. Around them, crews of various species bustled, some human, others so alien, their very movements seemed like a dance to unheard rhythms. A robotic vendor hummed nearby, advertising synthetic snacks with a voice suspiciously like a late-night radio host. Jace shook his head. I swear, if one of those things offers me a hyper-caffeinated Nebula nut bar again, I'm demanding a refund. Lyria chuckled softly. Perhaps we should focus on finding your contact before you cause a diplomatic incident. Right, Jace said, pushing through the crowd with an exaggerated sigh. Let me just avoid bumping into a tentacle or two on the way. Their destination was a dimly lit lounge where whispers traveled faster than light signals, and every face carried secrets thicker than the station's recycled air. A tall figure waited near the bar, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk with a cybernetic implant. When she spotted Lyria, her posture relaxed just a fraction. Princess Lyria, the woman said, voice low but confident. It's been too long. Andre, Lyria replied, her long ears flattening slightly in a gesture Jace assumed was greeting or caution. Thank you for meeting us. Jace nudged her gently. Well, hello, Andre. Name's Jace, pilot and part-time expert in getting into trouble. Andre smirked, the corner of her mouth twitching upward. I've heard of you, not always in the best light. Jace winked. I prefer colorful reputation. The three settled into a secluded booth, where Andre pulled out a holopad displaying encrypted schematics and star charts. The regime's reach extends further than you know, she said. Their spies infiltrate even here. Lyria's eyes narrowed. Then time is against us. Exactly, Andre said. Your crate is a beacon to them. We've arranged for a discreet transfer to a trusted convoy, but the road is perilous. Jace raised an eyebrow. Perilous how? Space pirates? Rogue AI? Giant space slugs? Andre laughed, a rich sound like static electricity in a storm. All of the above, potentially. The holopad flickered, displaying a winding path through asteroid belts and plasma storms. Our window is narrow. You'll need to be sharp. Chase's grin widened. Sharp's my middle name? Well, you already knew that. Lyria folded her hands, her voice calm but resolute. We'll prepare immediately. Outside the lounge, the station's corridors hummed with activity. Jace and Lyria moved through them, exchanging quick glances and quiet jokes to keep the shadows at bay. So, Jace said, how do you like this place? Any tips for surviving without getting vaporized or lost? Lyria's long ears twitched thoughtfully. Stay close to allies, avoid the neon-lit alleys, and never trust a smiling robot. Noted. And the robot with the nebula nut bar? Probably the most trustworthy one. As night fell over the station, the stars outside twinkled cold and distant. Inside, the tension thickened, but so did the fragile bond between pilot and princess. Amidst alien customs, secret deals, and lurking dangers, their shared humor became a shield. Jace clapped Lyria on the shoulder. Ready to take on the galaxy's worst so we can get back to the quiet void? Lyria smiled, her long ears flicking once more in agreement. Together we are stronger than the sum of our fears. And so, with humor as their armor and hope as their guide, they stepped into the coming storm. Knowing the path ahead was uncertain, but far less lonely. Jace stared at the blinking console, the calm before the storm, or maybe the calm before the ship's coffee machine finally gave up on him. Either way, the silence in the cockpit felt heavy, charged with all the decisions that had led here. Lyria sat beside him, her long ears twitching with a kind of anticipation that only someone who's been a princess and an accidental smuggler could carry. We made it, she said quietly, against odds that were frankly ridiculous. Jace smirked. Ridiculous is kind of my specialty. He nudged a button, and the view on the main screen shifted, revealing the surface of Alaran Prime below, bright with the first light of dawn. Home sweet home, huh? Lyria nodded, her gaze fixed on the sprawling cityscape. And this time, it's for real. No more running, no more hiding. The crate sat secured behind them, its energy now stable, its purpose fulfilled. The device inside had been delivered to trusted hands, scientists and rebels working to dismantle the oppressive regime, not with blasters or bombs, but with technology that could unravel their control at a fundamental level. Jace rubbed the back of his neck. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but being a galactic courier with an alien princess isn't the worst job I've ever had. Lyria raised an eyebrow. Is there a worse job? Once had to fix a zero-gravity toilet on a mining rig. That was unforgettable. He laughed, shaking his head. But seriously, I've learned a lot on this trip. About trust, about courage, and about how to keep a straight face when your only companion has ears that could pick up a radio signal from 3 planets away. Lyria smiled, the faintest flicker of amusement in her eyes. You taught me a thing or two about humor, something I hadn't realized was missing until now. Guess we're good for each other, Jace said. You with your serious save the galaxy vibe, me with my tell bad jokes and pilot better routine. The ship's AI glitch piped up with its usual deadpan tone. Captain, the probability of success was statistically increased by your presence, and your jokes may have reduced stress levels by approximately 12.7%. Jace gave Glitch a mock salute. See? Even the AI's got my back. As the Artemis began its descent toward the planet, the tension that had gripped them since the journey's start loosened like a taut wire finally cut. The vast emptiness of space that once felt cold and unforgiving now seemed full of possibilities. Lyria reached out, her hand brushing Jace's. Thank you for not giving up, for staying when you could have walked away. Jace looked down at their hands, a warmth spreading through him. You know, I thought I was alone on this ship, but maybe being alone was just waiting for someone like you to show up. Lyria's ears twitched softly. And here I thought you'd say it was because of my stellar piloting skills. Those too. Jace said with a grin. Definitely those two. The Artemis touched down gently on the landing pad, the engines winding down in a soothing hum. The door slid open, and a breeze carrying the sense of a world worth fighting for drifted in. As they stepped out together, the galaxy's weight seemed lighter. They were no longer just a pilot and an alien princess thrown together by circumstance. They were partners, shaped by the journey, ready to face whatever came next. Jace looked up at the rising sun, then back at Lyria. So what's the plan? Save your planet? Rule the galaxy? Or maybe just find a decent cup of coffee? Lyria laughed, a clear, joyful sound that echoed through the morning air. First, coffee, then the galaxy. And with that, they walked forward, not as strangers bound by duty, but as friends bound by something far stronger, a shared story written across the stars. Jonas Keller had expected diplomatic awkwardness, maybe a few veiled insults, some interspecies food poisoning, and, if he was lucky, a ceremonial robe he could quietly burn afterward. But he hadn't expected her. The chamber smelled like burnt metal and perfume. Jonas stood stiff in the center, trying not to sweat through his diplomatic tunic, which was already a size too small thanks to sci-fi gravity, making everything on his body feel like it owed someone rent. Around him, the sci-fi delegation formed a semicircle, their eyes unblinking, expressions unreadable. Their leader, Arch-Envoy Bravak, took a step forward and gestured grandly toward a platform behind him. The girl stood there silently. Woman, Jonas corrected himself. She was tall, with skin like polished dusk, and ears long enough to be aerodynamic. She wore a pale sash, ceremonial jewelry, and an expression that could slice titanium. Bravak was speaking again. As tradition dictates, a guest of honor receives a living tribute of service. The bond is sacred. She is yours. Jonas blinked, then blinked again. Excuse me? The translator chirped once in his ear, helpfully repeating, she is yours. I thought that was a metaphor, Jonas said, like a ceremonial goat or a symbolic feathered hat. Bravak gestured again, clearly pleased. She has been trained to speak over 70 human dialects and is skilled in both companionship and piloting. She will serve you well. Jonas turned to the platform. The woman hadn't moved. Her eyes locked onto his, cool and unreadable. Jonas took a breath. I refuse. A ripple of stunned silence spread through the chamber, like someone had slapped a choir of robots. Bravak's smile wavered. Ambassador Keller, refusal is a grave insult. It would destabilize our accords. Jonas pulled himself up straight. Then let it be destabilized. I don't own people. I'm not running a bloody space harem. I'm from Earth, not 14th century Mars. The silence got colder. The woman tilted her head slightly, the faintest flicker of interest in her eyes. Jonas turned to her. You're free. That's it. No ceremony, no paperwork, no metaphors. Do whatever you want. He walked out of the chamber before anyone could tackle him, which frankly was a small miracle. 2 hours later, Jonas stood in his temporary quarters at the embassy complex, drinking something approximating tea and stress-eating protein chips that tasted like spicy gravel. The city outside pulsed with neon signs, airborne rickshaws, and about 10% more gravity than he liked. His diplomatic assistant, a round AI drone named Milo, hovered nearby. You've triggered 17 violations of protocol, Milo reported cheerfully. Your popularity rating among Safarian officials is currently lower than fungus rot. Put that on my business card, Jonas muttered. There was a knock. Not a beep, not a chime, a knock. He opened the door and nearly spilled his tea. She was standing there. Same eyes, same ears. No guards, no chains. Hi, she said. I'm not sure where the kitchen is, but I'd like tea. The good kind. Not the swill you're drinking. Jonas blinked. You... what? Why are you here? She stepped past him, ignoring the question, and examined the room like an appraiser. Freedom means I choose where I go, she said, walking to the kitchenette. Today I choose here. Milo made a soft, confused whirring sound. Jonas stared. You understand I'm not going to make you stay, right? I understood that the first time, she said, pulling open cabinets. Do you have sugar Or is this another thing your species pretends is unhealthy while inhaling deep-fried insects? I don't know what to do with this situation, Jonas muttered. Make better tea, she said. She finally turned to face him fully. My name is Rye. Jonas nodded slowly. Right, Jonas. I know, she said, pouring water with an elegance that felt like it should be illegal. Your file was long. Kinda sad. Very beige. Jonas sat heavily. Welcome to the diplomatic suite. Please enjoy the cheap furniture and looming political fallout. You'll be lucky if all you get is fallout, Rye said. Some of Bravac's advisors looked at you like they were mentally measuring your internal organs for resale. Comforting. She slid a steaming cup across the table. Jonas picked it up and sniffed cautiously. Wait, how did you make good tea with the stuff in that cabinet? Rye smirked. Trade secret. They sat in silence for a moment. The city buzzed outside. Somewhere a vendor was shouting about glow-fruit kebabs. You don't have to stay, Jonas said again, softer. I want to stay, Rye said, and you haven't asked me why yet. Why? She leaned forward slightly, eyes glinting. Because in a room full of power-hungry sycophants, you were the only one who said no. That kind of stupidity is rare. I want to see what you do next. Jonas laughed. That's your reason? Morbid curiosity? That, and you're the only diplomat I've met who wears socks with cartoon dinosaurs on them. They're vintage, Jonas said with mock pride. They're tragic, Rye corrected. He sipped the tea. It was better than any he'd had since arriving. So, he said, what now? She leaned back and gave him a long, unreadable look. Now you teach me how to fly your ship, and I teach you how not to die in an alien city full of assassins who think diplomacy is a food group. Jonas raised an eyebrow. You think I need a bodyguard? I think you need someone who knows which alleys don't end in organ theft. He considered this. Fair. They sat there, sharing tea and quiet. Outside, the embassy lights flickered on, and stars began to bloom in the purple Cypherian sky. Jonas had come to the planet expecting politics, press conferences, and polite lies. He hadn't expected Rye. He definitely hadn't expected to laugh. Jonas woke up to the sound of humming, not mechanical humming, but human, or, well, alien humanoid, humming, drifting in through the half-open door of his cramped bedroom. It was rhythmic, strangely upbeat, and set entirely to the beat of someone reorganizing his kitchen with militaristic efficiency. He rubbed his eyes and stumbled into the main room. Rye was perched on the counter, her long legs swinging, surrounded by open containers, floating jars, and one hovering utensil that was definitely not Earth-safe. Why is my spatula levitating? He asked. It's not a spatula, Rye said without looking up. It's a Cypherian dermal flattener. You've been flipping eggs with a skincare tool. That explains the metallic aftertaste. Jonas scratched his head. Wait, why are you reorganizing everything? Rye gestured with a container marked in 4 languages, and a symbol that Jonas was pretty sure meant do not ingest without antitoxin. You had all the food organized by color. Color, Jonas. Are you assembling snacks or painting with condiments? I was tired, Jonas groaned, and the gravity was making the shelves look wavy. Milo hovered into view, its blue light blinking in soft distress. Ambassador, your schedule for today includes a tension reduction symposium with the Cypherian Trade Council, a holographic handshake demonstration, and a mandatory smiling workshop. I hate all of those things, Jonas said. Especially the smiling, Rye added. You look like you're experiencing mild electrical shock when you try. Diplomatic shock, Jonas said, grabbing a piece of toast Rye had expertly prepared, using his toaster, now floating for some reason. What are we doing today that doesn't involve ceremonial fruit? Rye tossed him a datapad. You've got 3 meetings, 1 vaguely threatening invitation from General Trovek, and a note from someone named Twitch, who says you still owe him a laser wrench. Jonas blinked. Twitch is alive? I thought he fused himself to a magnet core on asteroid 17. He probably did, but apparently it improved his aim. They walked together down the corridor of the diplomatic complex, flanked by translucent walls pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Cypherian had a way of making everything look both beautiful and vaguely predatory. Even the architecture felt like it was watching you. Is it weird that I've started liking it here? Jonas muttered. Like, not moving in liking, but maybe not fleeing immediately liking. Rye glanced sideways. Yes, but that might be the tea finally stabilizing your neurotransmitters. They reached the central chamber for the trade symposium. It was already filled with Safarian officials, several hovering translators, a musical quartet of algae-based wind instruments, and something that might have been a diplomat or a houseplant. Jonas wasn't sure. As soon as Jonas stepped in, the music stopped. All heads turned. He cleared his throat. Hello, I'm Jonas. I'm very tired, slightly over-caffeinated, and here to talk about trade. There was a pause, then laughter. From Rye, then slowly from a few Safarians. An official stood. You honor us with humor, Earthspeaker. Rye leaned in. See? Your awkwardness is finally marketable. The meeting went surprisingly well, with only one minor misunderstanding about the term liquid assets, which apparently translated to highly explosive financial fluids in the local dialect. By the end, Jonas had secured 3 trade proposals, 2 non-binding cultural exchanges, and an invitation to something called a moss banquet that Rye warned him never to accept unless he enjoyed hallucinating his own childhood. Back in the quarters, Jonas collapsed onto the couch. I think I survived, he said. Barely. You almost agreed to lease Earth's moon in exchange for thermal cheese, Rye replied. Don't knock space cheese until you try it. Milo beeped. Incoming encrypted message. Priority level, medium-ish. Probably not fatal. Jonas tapped the holoscreen. A flickering image appeared. General Trovek. She had the look of someone who hadn't blinked in 17 hours and had never lost a game of poker in her life. Ambassador Keller, a cordial suggestion. Dine with me tonight. Bring your companion. The image cut out. Well, that sounded optional, Jonas muttered. She wants to assess me, Rye said, folding her arms. Maybe test me. You planning to stab her with kindness? No, Rye said. I'm planning to be polite and terrifying. It's a rare combo. The dinner took place in a private chamber near the edge of the city, high above the glowing streets. The room was filled with silent soldiers, elegant weaponry, and a suspicious lack of dessert. Trovek was already seated, sipping something thick and green. Your act of defiance in the Hall of Exchange was unexpected. Jonas smiled blandly. I'm full of surprises and regrets, but mostly surprises. Trovek's eyes flicked to Rye. You were bred to obey. You do not obey. I was bred to survive, Rye replied calmly. Obedience is optional. Jonas tried not to choke on his drink. Trovek leaned forward. You know what you are, what your blood carries, what your silence protects. The room chilled. Rye met her gaze. Do you? Silence. Then Trovek smiled, the kind of smile a knife might give you before deciding where to cut. I will be watching, closely. They returned to the embassy in silence. Finally, Jonas spoke. What was that about? Rye was quiet for a moment. My people weren't just diplomats or dancers, Jonas. They were connected. Living interfaces for systems older than most planets. There are things inside me that even I don't fully understand. Like how you make tea that doesn't taste like melted bolts? Exactly. Jonas stared at her. Are you dangerous? She met his gaze evenly. Only to people who think I belong in chains. Okay, he said slowly. Then I'll be sure not to chain you. Also, not to stand near anything labeled Ancient Planetary Core Interface. Just in case. She cracked a smile. Smart. They walked together through the darkened corridor. Behind them, in the shadowed eaves of the ceiling, something small and metallic detached from the wall. A surveillance drone shaped like a moth. It buzzed once, then sizzled and dropped, smoking. Rye looked over her shoulder. Oops, Jonas blinked. Did you? Freedom means I can redecorate, she said sweetly. They kept walking. The lights dimmed behind them, and the stars outside the window flared just a little brighter. Jonas stared at the blinking light on his terminal like it had insulted his ancestors. Milo, he said, is it broken or is that the actual number of incoming messages? Milo hovered closer, screen glowing helpfully. It's not broken. You're just popular now. The Safarian gossip circuit has dubbed you the man who set her free, but she stayed anyway. There's already a pop ballad and a conspiracy forum. Rye leaned over the couch, snorting softly. You've got fan art. Some of it's flattering. Some of it's... Let's just say your neck-to-leg ratio is way off in a few of them. Jonas sighed. This was supposed to be a diplomatic tour, not interstellar reality TV. She shrugged. You didn't die on your first 3 days. That's basically fame-worthy on this planet. The terminal pinged again. Jonas groaned. Okay, who is it now? Message from the Vayari, Milo reported. They've invited you to their tech symposium. I thought the Vayari hated humans. They do, but apparently they like her. Rye smirked. I saved one of their scientists from a vacuum breach 5 cycles ago. He cried and gave me a titanium flower. Awkward but sweet. Jonas raised an eyebrow. So this is your fault? I've been told worse. An hour later, they were aboard a glider shuttle, hurtling toward the Vayari High Dome. Their version of a university, spaceport, and top-secret weapons lab rolled into one. The shuttle was sleek, AI-piloted, and had exactly one seatbelt, which Rye claimed on instinct. You've got stronger bones, she said when Jonas gave her a look. Also, your reflexes are trash. He braced himself as the shuttle tilted sharply. That's rich coming from someone who eats glowing noodles and calls them breakfast. They're rich in electrolytes, she replied, and possibly radioactive. It's the spice. The Vayari dome loomed ahead, a spiked, humming structure surrounded by orbital shields and glowing antennae. Inside, it was all glass floors, floating platforms, and drones that looked suspiciously like caffeinated jellyfish. They were met by a spherical being with 3 limbs and no apparent face. Its translator droned, Ambassador Jonas, Companion Rye, you are welcomed. Please refrain from licking any surfaces. Noted, Jonas said slowly. Thanks for the warning, I guess, Rye whispered. Last time a delegate licked something here, he hallucinated he was a toaster for 3 days. The jellyfish drones guided them into the central symposium chamber, where rows of alien scientists murmured in at least 10 different sonic frequencies. A Vayari researcher with metallic fins and a scent of ozone approached. We request your presence in the neuroframe. Jonas blinked. The what now? It is a neural simulation chamber. We share our knowledge through controlled dream states. Very safe. Mostly? Rye raised a brow. Mostly? The Vayari's fins fluttered. 2% risk of minor psychic entanglement. Very fashionable in some systems. Before Jonas could protest, he was ushered onto a platform and fitted with a glowing circlet that immediately made his brain itch. Okay, this better not be like that one time on Tarsus 9 when I dreamed I was my own mother. Just relax, Rye said from the other platform, already slipping her circlet on. You might even enjoy it. The neuroframe activated with a surge of light and sound. Jonas felt himself falling sideways, then backward, then diagonally into a universe made entirely of hexagons and distant voices. Then he was standing in a simulated city that looked like a child's sketch of Earth. Floating cars, too many rainbows, and a giant hamster directing traffic. I think it's broken, he said. Rye appeared next to him, wearing a cape. Nope, this is the calibration phase. It reads your subconscious. Apparently your brain thinks hamsters are authoritative. Jonas scowled. That tracks, sadly. A Vayari construct appeared, guiding them through rooms of light, data archives, and alien text stored in crystalline trees. Jonas stumbled through a corridor of living code that kept offering him tea. At one point, a talking bookshelf explained quantum jump theory using interpretive dance. Rye applauded. By the time they emerged, Jonas felt like his dreams would need subtitles for a week. That was enlightening, he said, wobbling slightly. You tried to hug a data stream, Rye said. You looked like you were flirting with a laser grid. It was warm. Back at the embassy, Jonas peeled off the last of the neuroframe equipment and face-planted on the couch. Milo buzzed gently. You have another meeting. Minor diplomat from the Zarn Consortium. Something about plasma farming permits. Tell them I died in the simulation, Jonas mumbled. I'll pencil in resurrection for tomorrow. Rye walked over, a soft expression crossing her face. You handled today well. Didn't even scream once. I'm evolving. He looked at her. Seriously, though, why are you still here? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat next to him, tapping her fingers lightly on the armrest. When I was trained for service, she said slowly, we were taught that loyalty is currency, that affection is learned, that freedom is dangerous because it gives you too many doors. Jonas watched her. And now I think maybe dangerous is okay. He nodded slowly. I make bad tea. I forget names. I can't operate half the things in this apartment without a fire risk. And you am the dangerous one. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Milo piped up. Also, you both have fan mail. Someone knitted a plush version of Rye holding a fire staff. It's disturbingly cute. I'm going to burn it, Rye said immediately. No, you're not, Jonas muttered. I'm putting it on the mantle. It has my ears too long. That's the best part. And despite the noise, the politics, the looming threats, and the plush effigies, neither of them got up. The alarm klaxon began blaring at precisely 5:07 local time, which, according to Jonas's personal body clock, was precisely don't even think about it o'clock. He groaned, rolled over, and pulled the blanket over his head. Emergency drill, Milo chirped from the ceiling. Or real emergency. Probability is currently 50-50. Flip a coin and let me know, Jonas muttered into his pillow. Rye barged into the room, fully dressed and mildly annoyed. Get up. This isn't a drill. I was hoping you'd say, it's just a test and breakfast is ready. I tried that yesterday and you bit your spoon. Jonas dragged himself up and stumbled into the corridor, where flashing blue panels were rotating with annoying urgency. Okay, give it to me straight. Space pirates, collapsing singularity, diplomatic scandal, or some new crisis involving my socks? Unauthorized access in the Interlink Tower, Milo said. Security feeds disrupted. One life form signature identified near restricted files. Jonas blinked. Wait. Our restricted files? Yes. Well, that's a bit rude. Rye was already several steps ahead, long ears twitching as she accessed her internal mapping. Come on, if they're after the interlinked data, we don't have much time. Jonas followed her through a dizzying maze of hallways, escalator tubes, and one suspiciously judgmental elevator. I don't get it, he said between breaths. That part of the archive isn't even that interesting. It's just genetic records, Rye cut in, experimental tech, long classified links between former servant lines and planetary AI systems. And my name shows up in those records. Jonas stopped. Wait, are you saying this break-in is about you? Rye didn't stop walking. I'm saying we'd better get there before they learn too much about me. They reached the access corridor to the Interlink Tower, normally sealed with 4 levels of encryption and a passcode based on Safarian poetry that translated roughly to Stars Cry When Ignored. The door was open. Inside, one cloaked figure stood hunched over the console, fingers flying across the interface with practiced ease. Holographic symbols flickered above them, strands of code unraveling like illuminated silk. Stop right there, Jonas called. It sounded braver in his head. The figure turned. He, or possibly she, wore a mask shaped like a fractured star. Their voice came out through a distortion filter. Too late, Ambassador. She isn't who you think she is. You've been sheltering a weapon wrapped in charm. I'm not a weapon, Rye said, stepping forward. I was a tool. There's a difference. One chooses. The figure's hand moved too fast to follow, and a ripple of pulse energy shot across the room. Jonas dove. Rye didn't flinch. She absorbed the shot. Jonas peeked from behind a console. You're immune to pulse energy? Modified epidermal lattice. Long story. Please focus. On what? Not dying or being impressed? The masked figure launched another attack, this time a cascade of fractal feedback meant to short out electronic systems. Milo fizzled and dropped like a stunned jellyfish. Rude, Jonas shouted, ducking behind another terminal. That was my assistant, my calendar, and my only reliable friend. Rye engaged the intruder, her movements fluid and unnervingly precise. Her body shimmered slightly as her neural links activated, bending the energy around her like silken water. I didn't know you could fight like that, Jonas muttered. I didn't either. Guess I'm evolving too. The masked figure lunged for the main control crystal. Rai met them mid-leap, grabbed the mask and tore it free. Jonas expected something monstrous, or cybernetic, or at least someone with bad skin. Instead it was a boy, maybe 16, pale, wide-eyed, trembling. I needed the truth, he said. They said the old lines weren't real, that you were just myth. But it's all here. The connections, the interfaces. You're one of them. I'm one of me, Rai said calmly, and you nearly killed 2 people looking for bedtime stories. He looked down. I'm sorry. They said if I could prove it, I'd be useful. That I'd be chosen. Chosen by who? Jonas asked. The boy hesitated. The circle. They want the old knowledge. They think the servant bloodlines can still awaken the core systems. They think you're the key. Jonas rubbed his temples. Great. So now we're dealing with a cult. Technically a techno-sympathist revolutionary group, Rai said. But yes, cult adjacent. They called in Cypherian security to detain the intruder, though Jonas insisted they let the boy keep his limbs and most of his dignity. Back at the quarters, Jonas sat slumped on the couch. I miss the days when my biggest problem was remembering alien hand gestures. Rai paced quietly. They're watching now. I can feel it. Not just the circle, the core systems, the deeper networks. Something stirred when that archive was accessed. Are you saying you woke up some ancient galactic AI by accident? I'm saying it was probably already awake, and now it knows I'm here. There was a beat of silence. Then Jonas said, So, should we run, hide, or invite it over for awkward tea? She smiled faintly. Maybe all 3. Milo sparked back to life with a sad beep. I regret to inform you that your next meeting is with a delegation of sentient moss. Jonas leaned back. Oh, thanks, Space. Something normal. Rai grabbed her coat. Just don't let it attach to your shoes. Last time someone tracked moss spores into a diplomatic hall, they ended up co-governing a fungus colony. I already do that. It's called laundry. They stepped into the hallway together, as always, but now every light flicker felt heavier. Every whisper in the walls a little closer, and somewhere, deep beneath the digital veins of the planet, something ancient adjusted its gaze. 3 things went wrong in the first 7 minutes of Jonas's day. First, Milo made coffee that somehow tasted like liquefied carpet. Second, the sentient moss from yesterday's delegation had reproduced overnight and was now attempting to cohabitate with his shower. And third, a planetary-wide security alert flashed red across every screen in the apartment. Rai burst into the room mid-toast. The core systems are activating. Jonas blinked. I assume that's bad. On a scale of 1 to galactic existential crisis, I'd say we're somewhere between panic now and write your will in binary. Milo floated down, voice distorted with static. Unknown frequency breach. Origin, beneath the planet's crust. Signal is responding to Rai's genetic signature. Jonas rubbed his temples. Can't we just, I don't know, unplug it? Rai raised an eyebrow. Unplug a sentient planetary defense matrix that predates most known star charts? Sure, Jonas. Let me just find the cosmic extension cord. He stared at her. That was sarcasm, right? Mostly. They were on the mag rail in minutes, speeding toward the subterranean access core, a place usually reserved for top-tier engineers, war historians, and the occasional janitor with very bad luck. Security protocols shimmered around them like glittery paranoia. Rai bypassed them with a wave of her hand. Should I be concerned how easy that was? Jonas asked. Probably. The final door opened into a chamber so vast it made Jonas's knees question their life choices. It looked like the inside of a Dyson sphere, folded inward and stitched with threads of glowing data. At the center was a crystal obelisk, slowly pulsing like a heartbeat. Symbols danced across its surface, ancient, alien, and disturbingly rhythmic. Okay, I'll ask, Jonas whispered. Is it humming at us? Rai nodded. It recognizes my presence. It's syncing. With what? With me. The obelisk flared. A projection emerged, a figure that looked almost like Rye, but older, her eyes glowing like collapsing stars. Designation accepted, it said in a voice that echoed in thoughts rather than ears. Bloodline integrity confirmed. Command protocols unlocked. Jonas looked from the projection to Rye. So, you're space royalty now? Not royalty, she said, watching the figure warily. A key to systems they sealed away when they feared what their own creations would become. The projection stepped forward. Do you wish to activate planetary directive sequence? No, Rye said firmly. I wish to cancel it. Permanently. The projection hesitated. Core intention cannot be overridden without input from secondary node. What's a secondary node? Jonas asked. You, the projection said. Jonas blinked. I beg your very shiny pardon? Rye turned to him, almost apologetic. When I bonded to you in that first contract, even if we dissolved it, the system read it as a link. You're my counterpart now. Technically. I thought you said that wasn't binding. Emotionally, no. Bureaucratically, apparently yes. Jonas looked at the obelisk. So, if I say yes, the planet turns into a murder system. If I say no, it shuts down forever? Essentially, he stepped closer. Hey, Big Sparkly, you ever hear of free will? The obelisk didn't reply, but the humming grew softer. I'm saying no, not just because planetary defense matrices make me nervous, but because Rye already chose freedom. I'm not about to let you override that with ancient space bureaucracy. There was silence, then a pulse. Directive canceled, the projection said, voice softer now. Autonomy acknowledged, lineage released. The crystal dimmed, and the projection dissolved like ash on water. The chamber fell still. Jonas exhaled slowly. Did we just win? Rye looked around. Looks like. Do we get a medal, or... A small chute opened and dropped a single glowing cube onto the floor. Jonas picked it up. It's warm. Milo's voice buzzed. It's a star seed, compressed energy, equivalent to roughly 3 Terra reactors. Also makes excellent soup. They left the chamber without ceremony, taking the long way back, past old corridors, through lifts that still creaked, and over bridges Rye insisted were perfectly safe, even as they sparked underfoot. Back at the embassy, the Moss had decided to unionize and was now holding signs that read, photosynthesize power to the people. I'll deal with that later, Jonas mumbled. Ray was leaning against the window, watching the skyline shift into shades of red and violet. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I feel untethered, in a good way, like I stopped being what they designed and started being what I chose. He sat beside her. So what now? You leaving? Going off to explore the stars with your newfound planetary keylessness? She smiled. I thought I might stay, at least until the Moss wins the vote. Then what? Then maybe see where this goes. She tapped her temple. You've grown on me, Jonas, like a very sarcastic, squishy barnacle. He grinned. High praise from the galactic key of doom. Milo floated past. Incoming transmission. The Vayari wish to nominate Rye for Interstellar Council. Also, the Sefarian fan club requests more plushie designs. Jonas groaned. We're never going to live that down. Rye stood up. Probably not, but we'll live. And they did. Not as ambassador and slave, not as weapon and wielder, but as 2 wildly incompatible organisms who somehow made a little corner of the galaxy slightly less broken, together, even if their couch was now entirely covered in moss.